So we're going to draw this fifth example, which is the cylinder and the torus. Make sure to open up. You can work on the same file you have all these other ones on, or you can create a new file and we'll place the other 1, 2, 3 that we have left over. So we open up a file, and basically what we want to start out with is to make sure that we are in 3D modeling and not in drafting and annotation, which is up here. So we go to 3D modeling. It's going to change our tabs a little bit. Our draw and modify are still there, which is a key tools that we're going to use. And we're going to start out with using where it says box here. We're going to go down to cylinder. You can only see these if you're in the home tab. If you're not in the home tab, that's probably why you're not seeing this. You go down to cylinder. You got to create a cylinder about, let's say, diameter. So D enter, or you click on diameter here, 2 inches. And we're going to put the height to be 4. Now to rotate, all you have to do is hold shift, hold the scroll button on your mouse, and you rotate around. And you'll see a somewhat 3D object. It's all hidden, so we're going to change that right now. So from a 2D wireframe, where you can see the view tab, we're going to hit that arrow next to that and change it into conceptual, like we did before. That gives us a better visual view. If your background is black, don't worry about it. That's how your computer was set for default. So it's not going to affect anything. It's only a visual. Next part is we need to create 2 toruses, one on top and one on bottom. Now we can make it a little bit different from our PDF drawing here. It shows the torus are the same. I'm going to create a little different. I'm going to create one bigger, one smaller. Make it unique. This is just an example. It's not actually telling you what you're supposed to make. So we go to cylinder. Under cylinder, there's going to be a torus. So you might not have the cylinder up here. You might have a box or something else. But it's in this category. You're going to find torus, which is at the bottom. You select torus. You're going to select the center of the torus, which is like at the center of the donut. And to do that, there's 2 center places that we want to work with on this cylinder. There is the top face, the top circle. You'll see a center circle, center snap, and there's a bottom one that has a center snap. If you can't see these, or you don't see them highlighted, make sure you have O snap center snap on activated, so it should be highlighted. And if you're still having problems seeing it, even though that's activated, you move your mouse over the edge, and that mark, the center mark, will show up. So for the bottom, you don't see a center mark, but if I scroll to the edge, it brings it up, just like that. So what we want to do is select that center. We can make the diameter the same as the cylinder, or we can make a little bit smaller or larger. It's up to you. I'm going to do it the same size. So I'm going to type in D for diameter. I'm going to type in 2. And then it wants to know the thickness of the donut. So if you want to make it a really thin donut or a very thick donut, it's up to you. I'm going to go, looks like 0.28, so here it gives me a preview of the size. I'm going to go with 0.25 since it's a better number for me, I think. So I'm going to type in 0.25, hit space or enter, and you get your first torus. Now we can do our second one. Again, we go back to the torus command. We select the center. This time I'm going to go a little bit bigger. We'll go 1.25. That's the radius, so 2.5 would be diameter. And for the actual donut size, I'm going to go a little bit bigger too. I'm going to put by 0.5. Again, these are all optional numbers. You can play around with them. They don't have to be exactly what I have, but that's what I have. So I have this, and then the final step for this project example is to create a cylinder in the center and to subtract it. So to do that, right next to torus or any of these options, there's an extrude option. Actually, no, we're going back to torus. We're going to use the cylinder option. So we're going to do cylinder. We'll create a center from top or from the bottom, up to you, your own preference. And we're going to create it's up to a cylinder that's a little bit smaller than our center cylinder. So we're going to type in D for diameter. Going to type in maybe 1.75, or you can do 1.5, as long as it's smaller than 2. Now, as you can see, I'm moving my mouse, and it's extruding up, but I don't want it to extrude up. I just want it to go down through the material. So it doesn't matter what length you make it, because it's going to disappear later on by subtracting. So we would click down, and we end up with something like this. It almost looks like a rivet. From there, we go to our subtract command, which is under solid editing, right under union. There's a subtract. There's 2 circles overlapping each other. Select that. It's going to ask us to select parts that we want to subtract from. So that's key. So we want to keep the things that we're selecting now, which is these 3 parts. Then we click enter or space, and then we select a surface or region to subtract, which is going to be our long cylinder. And I click enter. And that will create the hole through my whole item. So that's exactly what we want to see for this item. Alright, so what we're going to do now is the jar. Notice that the numbers don't seem to be in inches. They're actually in millimeters. But you could just type it as an inch. Don't worry about it. Or you can do millimeters. But we're going to do inches for now, since we already have all the drawings in inches. So it's going to be a big jar. Really big jar. Go ahead and scale it down. We go back to our drawing. And we go to a front view or a top view. To do that, you go to your view. Oh, actually, no, you don't want to do that. To do that, where's my view cube? You can have a view cube activated. It's not activating. Alright, well, you go to your view tab here. So you got all the view options. And we're going to go to top. So where it says views, just go top. It's going to show you all your items. Don't worry about that, just move over. And this is where we're going to draw the section view of our jar. We go to our home tab bar, and we go to our line command, and we start from the bottom. So it is, make sure you have ortho on, otherwise it's not going to be a straight bottom jar. I'm going to type in 95, and it goes up 6. Actually, I'm going to do it on the other side. 240. Then we go across 30. We go down 65. Across 40. And all the way down. Oh, something's not working here. Okay, it looks like that part should be on the left side, not on the right side. Made a mistake, but that's okay. So I'm going to select these lines. I'm going to use the move command. I'm going to move it.
3D modeling?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can do 3D or 2D. You select these items, you move it from the bottom here to the corner here. And looks like the radius are 25, so I have to draw these out. Oh, that's going to be interesting. Alright, before I do that, I'm going to delete that 240 because I no longer need that. And I'm just going to offset all these lines to give it a thickness. The thickness of a material is 20. If you look at the bottom corner right here, it says 20. So we go to our offset command, which is right now under stretch. Go to offset. You type in 20. Yep. Offset 20. And you offset all these lines inward or to the right side. Once you have those, you can use the fillet command. Because there's a lot of radius Yeah, there's a lot of radiuses inside of this. So there's 5s and 25s. 5s are in the inner little corners, 25s are in the big corners on the outside, except for this one. It's a little one too. So we'll start with the radius that is 5. So we go to the fillet, R for radius, type in 5, and we do this one here, go space to return to our previous command. We do the second corner, this corner here, this corner here. And I believe that's all for the radius that is 5. At this point we can close up the item. There should be a line across here and a line across here. So now we can go back to our fillet command, and we're going to do a radius of 25. The big fillets. Those are going to be here at the corner, here in the back, here at the bottom, and that's it for those. Here we actually have to create an arc, otherwise we won't be able to get the 2 exact fillets, unless you want to do a fillet of 10. Since this is a 20 total thickness, if we do a fillet of 10 and 10, we'll get that perfect arc. But it might be easier just to do the arc. So we go to draw. There's a 3-point arc option here. So we select that. We go 1, midpoint, and end. If you don't have the midpoint, make sure you have OSnap on. Right click on it and it says midpoint. Make sure that's highlighted. Otherwise that won't work. Now you can stretch out the lines that you don't need and trim off anything you don't need. This I'm going to just drag that blue button and snap it to the corner. Do the same thing with this. Or actually I can delete this line, and then stretch this one. And you end up with something like this. Now you may have your other items in the same drawing, and they're probably really small compared to this. So once you have this set up, we're going to actually just scale it down. And I'm not sure what the scale factor is from inch to millimeter, so I'm just going to do just an estimate. So I'm going to use the scale command, select the entire object, select a point to scale from, and I'm going to type in 0.1, and that should create a way smaller object compared to what it used to be before. 0.1 would create about 10% the size. Once you have that, we're going to do some other steps to create a 3D object. So hopefully you have this set up already, and there's going to be 3 ways of doing this. I'll start with the easiest way, which is create this into a region and then revolve it. The other option is to use p-edit and revolve it. Actually, there's 2 options. We're not going to, because press tool wouldn't work here. So to do this, you go under draw. There's an option for region. It's hard to explain what it looks like, but that's where region is. You can hover around all the icons and you'll figure out which one is region. Or you can type it in. You select region, you select the entire object, and you click enter. And if you're in a conceptual view, it'll actually shade the inside of the object. If it's not shaded in and you're in conceptual view, that means it's not a region and it's not completely enclosed. So you won't be able to revolve. You will be able to revolve, but the object that you revolve will be a surface. It will not be a solid. So keep that in mind. There's other tricks into this, but you guys will learn this in the next semester. So we have that, and what we want to do next is where it says Home tab, where it says Extrude, we go down and we go to Revolve. From Revolve, we select Revolve command, we select the region or the object. We click space or enter because it's asking us to select any more objects. Click enter. And now we have to define the axis of rotation. This is pretty much where the mirror would be. You know how we use mirror? If we want to mirror this across, this would be our line here. So we're just going to trace this line from corner to corner. and that creates our rotation. Now it's also asking us what angle of rotation we would like. 360 would be the completely enclosure. If you want it a little bit open, you'll do a little less. It's really up to you. I don't mind if you want the jar not to be functional, but more like artistic. That's fine. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna do 320. So it's gonna leave a little opening. And by holding Shift and your scroll button, I'm rotating around to get a better visual view of my object. Another option of viewing your object, and if you want it perfectly isometric and you can't just rotate it around, you go from your View tab here, from top, you go one of these isometrics views. So there's southeast and so forth. If I drew the drawing correctly, this should have been at the bottom. But since it's not, I can also rotate it. There is an option for the selection gizmo where it says rotation gizmo. So when we have that, we select the object. It gives us a rotation kind of object where we can use these circles to rotate our object. It's a little advanced, so if you want to play around that, that's okay. If you don't worry about it. But that's how the object would look. So that creates our jar or artistic piece of art. So we have that, and if you want to play around with the colors, you can also change the colors based on layer that you may have in this drawing. That's too bright. There, that looks better. And I'm going to leave it as is. And then we're going to go to our next one. So basically we're going to draw this final example. I'm not sure what you want to call it. That's what I'm going to do. To do that, we create a box. Inside the box, we create another box, which we can think offset because it looks like it's the same distance of 20. Then we do a circle, which we can do in an array, or you can mirror it or copy it over. It's up to you what you want to do with these circles. There is no location for it, so wherever you place it for the first one, keep it consistent. So let's go back to our drawing. We're going to go to a top view, which again, if you're in views here, from isometric, I'm going to go to top, so I can draw from the top. I do a rectangle. Select a point anywhere on the screen, and move my mouse. And now I'm going to type in D for dimensions. That way I can type the dimensions for the rectangle. So I type in D, enter, and it's going to be 160 by 100. So that's my rectangle. It's kind of on the in the way of the object. I'm just going to move it over. I have this. The second box, which is inside, is actually an offset of about, it's not just about, it's offset of 20. So instead of creating another box and trying to place it in the middle, I'm just going to use the offset command. Type in 20. I'm going to offset it in 20. Next part is these circles in the corners. As you can see in the drawing, there's 4 of them. They're called cylinders, I guess, of a height of 10, which is the same height as the bottom box, so it's all the way through, and the radius of 5. So I'm just going to create a circle at the corner here. I'm going to type in radius is our default, so all I have to do is type in 5 and enter. So that's my size. I have to move it over. One way of doing this would be to create a line here and placing it to the center. That's probably the best way. So I'm going to create a line from corner of one rectangle to corner of the other rectangle. The midpoint of that line should be the center of the circle. So I use the move command, select my circle, click enter or space. I select the center of the circle, which is at this point, it's the end point too. I'm going to move it over to the midpoint of that line. So it is actually placed exactly at dead center in between these two corners, even though it doesn't quite look like it, but that's what it is. I can remove this line because that's only for reference. Let me do that one more time in the other way, or a little bit reverse. I use a line command. I attach the corner to corner here. Enter. Go to circle. I draw a circle at the midpoint. Make sure you have OSNAP midpoint turned on. And from here I type in 5 for the radius. Delete the line, and I have the circle location.
How much is the box offset?
20. So once I have this circle, I'm going to use the mirror command because that's my easiest tool for this. I use mirror, which is under modify to the right here. There's the mirror command, or you can type it in. I select the circle. It's going to ask me, do you want to select any more? No, that's it. So I click enter. And basically I'm drawing a line at the center of the object, a vertical line. Could be from the center rectangle or the outer rectangle. Doesn't matter. It just needs a reference line of how it's going to mirror it. And so I'm going to snap from midpoint to midpoint. It's going to ask me, do I want to erase the source object? N is for default, so I'll just click enter. It creates a mirror copy of that circle. We use that command again. So I go to modify, mirror. I select both circles this time. I click enter, and I draw a horizontal line that's exactly at dead center of both rectangles, like so. And I click enter again to keep my originals. And that creates the 4 circles. Now, it kind of looks like it takes a while to do this, but actually you can do it pretty fast. So I'm going to do it from scratch from the beginning, but in a faster pace. So basically, here we go, rectangle, enter 160 by 100, click, offset, 20, click, line, cross, circle, 5, delete that, go to mirror, mirror to cross, done. So in the right way, you can do it pretty fast. Again, so we have this, and then finally we have one more part that we need to do, is the elliptical cylinder, which is 80 by 40. So to do this one, it's going to be a little bit tricky because I need to create the center of it and actually create the ellipse. The way I enjoy doing ellipses is I create a rectangle first of what I want the ellipse to fill up, and from there I create the ellipse. So I'm going to start with rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle that is 80 by 40 because that's our elliptical cylinder size. So rectangle, D for dimension, 80 by 40. So my ellipse should be exactly this size. So now I can go to the ellipse. There's some different options. We have center or the axis end. You want to use the axis end. Creates. So to do that, again, I hit the arrow next to it, axis end. I hit the midpoint of one side of the rectangle. Hit the midpoint of the right side of the rectangle, and then I hit the top or bottom. Doesn't matter which side you decide. That's for the thickness of the ellipse. So I have it perfect. Now I can remove the outside rectangle because I no longer need that. That was just for reference. I create a center line of this rectangle here. So I click from midpoint to midpoint. Now I have the exact center point of this rectangle. I use the move command, select the ellipse, select the center. If the center does not show up, which happens a lot, let's see if I can do this again. See, I don't see the center mark. If you hover over the actual line, just like a circle, the mark will show up. So there it goes. So I select that center point, and I select the midpoint of that line. Finally, I remove this reference line, or construction line, and we have our 2D drawing complete. From here, we'll go to 3D next. Alright, so the easiest way of making this 2D object into a 3D object would be to use press pull command. I'm going to rotate it in an isometric view. I'm holding shift and the scroll button, or you can go to your views and change it to one of these isometrics here. From there, I'm going to use the press pull command. If you're in a home tab, right under polysolid next to one of these options here, there's a press pull. So, or you can type it in. Take the press pull. We're going to select the area where the circles are located. So you can see kind of it highlighting. You may not see it on my screen, but you'll see it on your screen. And once you grab that, you'll see it creates something like this. So you're actually extruding this area with the holes cut out right through. And the height for this will be 10. So you just type in 10. Now we're still in the press pull command, so what we can do is select the inside now. You don't want to select the inside of the ellipse, but the outside of the ellipse, but the inside of the box or rectangle. So you select that and go up. Oh, I guess it didn't grab the rectangle. Ah. I was hoping that it would take the ellipse and create a hole through it, but since it's not doing that, we may need to do the ellipse first. Yes, we'll have to do ellipse first and then subtract it. So hit escape before you click that or undo. Make sure you have something like this. Click press pull, select the ellipse, and just extend it out pretty far. At least 60. No, you want to do it more because you're going to lose it no matter what, so you can say 100 even. It doesn't matter what size you pick as long as it's higher than 60. Then you do press pull again. You take that rectangle, that empty area inside here, and we're going to go up to whatever it specifies, which is 60. At this point, you'll see that your ellipse is higher than your rectangle, your new rectangle, and so we'll just use the subtract command. So you go right under union, where there's like a little knife right next to the knife. There's subtract command. You select the object to subtract from, which is going to be your rectangle. You click enter, and then the object you subtract, which is your ellipse, and you click enter. And that creates your 3D object. Okay, so basically once you have this 3D object set up, what we need to do is use chamfer and fillets. We can start with fillets. You go to your fillet command, like so. It should be, or actually I'm looking for the 3D fillet, isn't it? Alright, so we're not going to use a regular fillet. What you want to do, which works better, is in the solid tab, there is a fillet edge, and here is the chamfer edge also. Or you can go to your surface tab, there's also a fillet. But since we're not working with surfaces, we're working with a solid object, we want to stick with our solid tab, solid tools. And again, here's subtract, even. Our home tab has shortcuts to all of these. In solid, we actually have them full sized. So now you can see how it really looks if you can't see the icon beforehand. We go to our fillet edge. We type in the radius. Oh, it looks like they don't have a radius here, so we're going to make our own radius. We're going to radius of 5. If you like, you can go bigger or smaller. Oh, it looks like that's a really small radius. So we're going to go a little bit bigger now. Go escape, go to fillet. I'm going to go about 25. That's really small. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to type in radius. That's why it's not working. Fillet, R for radius, 5. Now it works, yeah. And we go to all 4 corners. So you make sure you rotate it around, get all 4. If you select too many of them or an additional line by accident, like this lower line here, or the upper line here, what you can do is hold shift and click on it again, and it should deselect it. Most of them, okay, I guess it's not working right now. So we have to do it again. Fillet. The radius is set to 5. And we'll go around and select all the corners. And then you click enter or space to accept your new fillets. And you should see your object will have fillets now. Your next part will be to do the chamfer of the upper edges of the bigger rectangle, or the top rectangle. To do that, you go back to the fillet edge location, you hit that arrow, and you go into chamfer edges, or edge. There, it's going to ask you for a select an edge or a distance. We'll work with the distance first. The distance will be 10. And the second distance will be also 10. So we do 2 of those, and then we can select the edges, creating like so. Oh. See, you'll find that there's a problem with this. As I chamfered the edges of the bigger rectangle, it was by itself. So what had happened, it created these empty holes down here. So that's something we don't want. So we'll have to actually undo this. And before we actually do the chamfer, what I recommend doing is making it a single object. So to do that, you use the union command. And I'll show you how to do that now. You use union, select the rectangle and the lower rectangle, you union together. So now if you hover over your item, they both highlight. So when you select it, it's one big piece. It's no longer 2 pieces, it's 1 piece. Now if you use your chamfer edge, type in the distance of 10 and 10 again. When you do the edges, you won't have that empty spot like you did before. Creating the perfect piece now. Once you have that, make sure you save your work, and that concludes